Hi, it's Angela from North Carolina, and I'm making my grandmother's delicious scalloped corn. My grandmother would be 130 if she was still living, and this recipe had been in her family long before she was born, and her mother was 50 when she was born, so this has been around my family about 180 years, and it's the easiest thing. You could almost call it a pantry side dish. It comes with stuff that you normally have in a pantry, and I don't usually keep creamed corn, but I bought it for this. It's a can of yellow corn that I've drained. And then I've got a can of creamed corn. I'm not a big fan of this kind of creamed corn. I like homemade, but you have to have it for this recipe, and it's killer. It's so good in here. Oops, I forgot I was supposed to beat my eggs because I'm talking to you. Let me grab a little bowl real quick. I was supposed to beat my eggs in that same bowl, my casserole dish, so I wouldn't have to dirty one up. So let me beat one real quick. We'll beat two. So I'm beating my 2 eggs. That's going to go into my corn. You don't have to butter your casserole or anything. So I'm going to beat these so they're kind of frothy. And I'm going to pour in my milk. And I'm using a can of carnation. But you could use the cream that you use for your coffee, or you could even use regular milk. But it really is good with carnation evaporated, if you have evaporated, and it calls for about 6 to 7 ounces. So now I'm going to beat that up. And I'm going to put this in with my creamed corn and my drained yellow corn. And I'm looking for a spoon. I know I had one. Well, I don't see it. Okay, so I'm mixing up the beaten egg with my milk. This is going to be like a custard. It's so good and so easy. You're not going to believe what holds it together. All right, so now we've got that. Okay, so now I have a total of 1 stick of melted unsalted butter. I'm pouring a little bit over half of that into this. Oh heck. I was going to mix my crackers with the butter, but here, look on top. You can still see my butter floating. So I'm going to let the crackers all kind of sit right on top of that butter and let them kind of absorb that butter flavor for a second. I like to mix up the butter and the crackers together to really get that good buttery flavor. Actually, there we go. Okay, so let me pick that up. You don't beat this, you just mix it with a fork. And I'm going to dump in half of a cup of shredded cheddar. I got a little bit more milk here. This bakes on a hot oven, 375, for about 20 minutes, that's all. Custard doesn't take long to puff up. And like I said, I'm not beating this. I'm just stirring this up and trying to get everything wet. And I can still see a little bit of egg that's hanging around. You know how egg looks when it hasn't been beaten properly. All right, so now I've got half of a cup, well, actually half of an onion that I lightly grilled till it ran clear. That's optional. Also optional is bell pepper, which some people use. I don't, but we do like the onion. You don't need a whole lot of onion. And for my spices, I've got a little over half of a teaspoon of salt. I've got 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And then, this sounds crazy, but I've got a full teaspoon of granulated white sugar. And that really gives it a little something. So my spices were sugar, some black pepper, and a little bit of salt. And this is ready. Now I'm going to do my butter and my saltines the right way. For my topping, I've got a little bit of my butter left. And I've got a little bit, maybe 1/4 cup of saltines with 1/4 cup of butter. And now I'm going to put in half a cup of cheese. And I'm not going to use the full half cup. I'm going to put a little bit more in here because I don't like cheese to make a slick topping on top. I'd rather have it inside. Okay, so now I'm going to mix my cheese up with my butter and my crackers. And this is my topping. And like I said, it's going to cook at 375. And I'm trying to get the butter on the cheese and on every little thing. There we go. Give it one more quick little spin. I want my egg to puff up, not bake like a flat, tasteless egg. Okay, so I got that smoothed out. And put my little topping over it. And I'm just going to sprinkle it across the top lightly. Doesn't have to be heavy. Some people will put this with lots of crackers. They'll do another whole sheath of crackers, but we don't. I don't need that much carb. In the original recipe that my grandmother made, it only called for this small amount of crackers. Over the years, people started adding more. So this is going to come out of the oven a beautiful brown puff. Now, if you're making this in advance, you can make it up to 3 days in advance before you cook it. And if you do that, you don't make your topping until the day that you're going to cook it. Or you can make the entire thing but the topping and pour it into a great big gallon Ziploc bag and freeze it. So this has options. It's a really great thing. It's a holiday staple in the South. You can Google corn scallop and you'll see it's been around forever and ever. I'm going to put this in my 375 oven and I'll be right back. I forgot that I did cook it a little bit longer, so it cooked at 30 minutes at 375, and it is ready to eat and looks wonderful. Now let me tell you something really cool about this. My grandmother cooked real simple food, and she made this exact dish, but she substituted the corn for canned tomatoes, drained, canned tomatoes that were like diced, and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar instead of white sugar, and it was the exact same recipe without the cheese. So she made a tomato scallop with 2 cans of tomatoes drained that were diced, the exact same amount of saltines. This was half of a sheath of saltines, and I crumbled them up in the bag to make it easy. And then it was the eggs with my spices and my cheese and crackers, and this was it. So give it a try sometime. It's good enough and pretty enough to serve at a holiday meal, but easy enough to make every night. And cheap too. Bye-bye and thanks for watching.